So I'm making this video in light of yesterday's slew of questions from patients and friends and on social media about a comprehensive look at proven herbs, compounds, nutraceuticals for the immune system, specifically for viruses. Okay, so this week I have talked about liposomal vitamin C and liposomal glutathione. Now, both of these I would highly recommend you have in your repertoire because they're both, they're both critical antioxidants. So vitamin C, everyone should be taking a good amount of vitamin C as a preventative, up to 3 grams a day. Glutathione is something that you can have on standby. If you are somebody with asthma or you've got weakened lungs or you're predisposed to coughs whenever you get ill, you could be taking a small amount at the moment, but it's not something you necessarily have to jump on unless you already know that you have depleted levels and your naturopathic doctor has prescribed it. It's just good to have on hand if you do get the infection, just to support the lungs, because once you get an infection, the glutathione starts to deplete. It's the body's master antioxidant, and you want optimal amounts to ensure that you don't have any pulmonary distress and the lungs stay nice and strong. What else? Okay, so my favorite antiviral, is something called lauric acid. I've got it here. There's absolutely no affiliate, okay? This is just one of the brands that I like. Lauric acid is basically just, lauric acid from coconut oil, okay? It's a medium chain triglyceride, and it has been shown to be highly antiviral as well as highly antifungal and antibacterial. But the way it works as regards to viruses is that it attaches itself to the lipid protein on the envelope of the virus. So it helps to stop the replication of the virus, both, to stop you from contracting it and also to help break it if you do contract it, so it shortens the time that you are sick. So it is just my favorite antiviral. I've been using it clinically, personally, probably over 10 years with great results. It's also good for the gut if you have any overgrowths, if you have any dysbiosis and you have any overgrowth of bacteria or fungal strains that you know of, or you just feel that you're very sensitive to sugar, yeast, things like that. A capful a day of this will definitely should improve your symptoms. And I recommend preventatively to take one inside. There's a scoop, so you can take a scoopful like this twice a day as a preventative. And if you become infected, I would triple that. Okay, and it's also really safe for kids because it's actually a food. It is a supplement, but it's food based, so it's completely safe. And kids between 10 and 12, I would say, similar dosage to adults. Anything younger than that, take one capful and split it between 2 dosages as a preventative, and then increase that slightly in cases of infection. So that's lauricidin, lauric acid, and you can find that made by lots of different brands. It's fairly inexpensive. The next thing I wanted to talk about was just 2 particular herbs. My favorite herb ever for kids in cases of infection is elderberry, which I'm sure many of you have heard of. And there's some great scientific literature around actually one product called Sambucol, which looked at elderberry, and it really helps to short circuit viruses. I don't say to parents, give elderberry as a preventative necessarily. It tends to work better in cases of infection, a bit like echinacea. Echinacea is something, so is elderberry, best to kind of take in the first 24 hours of being infected. And elderberry is just so nice because it mostly comes in a syrup and kids don't mind taking it. It's easy to get down them. And if you can find a syrup that has a little bit of zinc and vitamin C in that, then that would be great. I know Pucker Herbs, no affiliates, these are just brands that I like. Pucker Herbs makes a really beautiful elderberry syrup, and I highly recommend that for kids. And you can use up to 6 teaspoons a day for children that are not younger than 8. Yeah, so you'd have to work out the dosage from then on in. But elderberry is just fabulous. The next herb that I love, and this is really for adults, you can give small amounts to children over 10, is Andrographis. Andrographis is one of my all-time favorite herbs, so much so that I even grow it, because it actually saved my life, Andrographis, many years ago when I had a pneumothorax, had a punctured lung when I lived in the jungle, and I had a secondary infection, and I'm absolutely certain that Andrographis saved me. It is as important as the antibiotics that I travel with in my emergency kit. It's as important to me if in cases of acute serious infection. Andrographis is a Chinese herb. It's known as the king of bitters. If you ever taste the tincture, it is, I mean, it's so bitter, you can't even believe it. So obviously good for the digestive system. But only if you have, you know, really some really chronic issue, which is usually related to heat, because it's a very cold, powerful, bitter herb. Okay, so it's not something to be taken chronically unless it's been prescribed by your naturopathic doctor or your herbalist, because it's very strong. But it's very antiviral, okay? It's actually known to be the herb that shortened that kind of put to bed the epidemic, the flu epidemic in India in the early, I think it was in 1919. And interestingly, Andrographis, they actually, Southampton University were doing a study on it. I haven't actually found the published results because I can't find them at the moment on PubMed, but I know the trial ended late last year, and it was a double-blind study with Andrographis, using it on patients within the NHS to see if it can help reduce symptoms of cold and flu, which is very interesting because obviously the NHS are really trying to reduce their prescriptions of antibiotics. And as I said, you know, I see it as powerful as an antibiotic. And if you look at the clinical, if you look at the scientific data around Andrographis, it's pretty compelling. It's obviously been used for thousands of years in the Chinese medicine system. And it's just brilliant at, stopping the virus from replicating. It helps to inhibit the expression of the gene of the virus and the replication. And it definitely shortens. I mean, the meta-analysis that I had a look at about Andrographis shows that it's got an 80 to 90% success rate in shortening the symptoms of flus. So that's great. But my clinical experience with it and my personal experience is just fantastic. So I do recommend it. Now, where do you get it from? Well, you can talk to your herbalist. You can, Pucker Herbs do make it. I really like Pucker Herbs. And in fact, the study on Andrographis within the NHS was actually funded by Pucker Herbs, but it's because I'm sure Sebastian Pohl, who owns Pucker Herbs, knows what an incredibly important and relevant herb it is. So yes, you can take Andrographis. Now, it's a fairly inexpensive herb. I recommend as a preventative, you only need to take kind of 2 caps twice a day as a preventative at the moment. If you're trying to really avoid getting this virus and you're really nervous and you're around lots of people or you're traveling on the tube, yes. If you're in isolation more or less, I don't think you necessarily need to take it as a preventative. I'd focus more on having optimal levels of vitamin C and zinc, and just eating well and sleeping well and just looking after the lifestyle side of things. Andrographis is great if you suddenly start to feel a bit achy or a bit fluey, you can feel some symptoms, just start taking it in acute dosages, 3 capsules 3 to 4 times a day for adults, and children over 10 can take 1 capsule 3 times a day. That should be fine, but it really is a beautifully powerful antiviral. Then I just wanted to mention the power of licorice, because licorice has a huge affinity for the lungs and it's such a good demulcent, so it soothes the lungs, very good for dry coughs, but it's also a very good antiviral. So anybody that does have lung issues or, always gets coughs, and you feel that that's one of the things you're really worried about as regards to this virus, or if you smoke, make a delicious licorice tea and drink just small sips throughout the day, especially if you do become infected. Now, I've got licorice root here. This is licorice root. Now, you can buy this chopped up into little pieces and you can boil it up, simmer it for 10 minutes, and it makes a delicious tea, okay? It's very, very soothing. If you have high blood pressure, be mindful of licorice, probably avoid it, or if you're pregnant, avoid it. But licorice is wonderful and it's really good to give to kids, especially when they have dry coughs, because it's really sweet and nourishing and they don't mind it at all, and you can mix it into chamomilla, other teas, and it's really lovely. So those would be my recommendations for now. The other thing you just have to remember is that you need to be spending time outdoors, as in nature, because that's just a fabulous way for your immune system to thrive, is being around nature and getting your shoes and socks off and getting grounded. There is nothing more important than pulling out all those positive ions that have been built up in your body from being on the computer all day or being in an office. There's some very powerful literature around grounding, and I'm not going to go into that now, but I do recommend the work of Dr. Klinghardt and his and all his work around making sure that you reduce your EMFs. But being grounded is the quickest, fastest way to reduce, inflammation from EMFs in your body. So I know it's cold, I know it's not the perfect time of year to be barefoot, but try and invest. That would be such a one of my biggest recommendations, like free medicines if you like, is to get outside, get your shoes and socks off, and have a little walk in the garden. Anything that is outside, concrete, wherever you might be, get your shoes and socks off and just ground it down. And obviously try and sleep well, because sleep is everything, okay? If your sleep is compromised, your immune system will be compromised. So I hope that is helpful. Please leave me any questions below and have a great day.